Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Power Man Podcast. My name is Rory Paquette. You guys know that already, I know. But, folks, I just want to thank you so very much for everything you've been doing lately. You've been sharing, subscribing, sending in DMs. Folks, it's been amazing. And I do this every episode because I'm just so incredibly grateful that you are finding our content worthwhile and getting something from it. And especially with sharing it, because that means that not only are you getting something from it, but you think that others will also. And folks, our shares are at an all-time high right now. So I want to thank you for that very, very much. Ever since we moved to 5 days a week, you folks have really shown up. If you're not out there doing what you're doing, I can't sit over here and do what I'm doing. So I appreciate it very much. And from the bottom of my heart, thank you. Now, all that mushy stuff aside, let's, pay a couple of bills. You guys all know what's coming. Let me get a sip of my preferred beverage. Mm. Oh, delicious stuff. And that's right. You know what we're drinking. It's Freedom Hill Coffee at Freedom Hill Coffee on Instagram. Deep, dark, rich, bold, and beautiful, just like my wife. They brew a mean bean. It's a fantastic cup of joe. Folks, they do all the right things for all the right reasons, and they support veterans. And you all know how important veterans are here at the Power Man. We have one with us today, getting ready to tell an awesome story. Folks, that's why we support them in the end. Go look them up, check them out. Freedom Hill Coffee at Freedom Hill Coffee on Instagram. Tell them Power Man sent you. Let me get another sip of this fine beverage so I can keep up with this young buck across the table from me. Man, fantastic. And I'll be drinking that throughout because, when you're a little long in the tooth like I am, you need that caffeine, boy. All right, here we go. Let's get rocking and rolling, folks. With us today, father, husband, Navy combat veteran, author, product designer, founder of Freeburg Design Automation. Please welcome Lee Freeburg. Lee, how you doing, brother?
Doing well, thank you.
All right. Love having you here, man. Love what you're doing. You are the author of the book, How to Live a Better Life. Congratulations on that. That's awesome whenever anybody publishes a book, man. Way to go.
Thank you.
Very, very cool. I know we have a lot to talk about, especially with the book and, with your mission and some other ideas you got, man. But before we get rolling, tell everybody who is, Lee Freeburg. What are you about? What brings you here today, brother?
You bet. So like you said, like I'm a combat Navy veteran. I was a corpsman, so I spent a good majority of my time with the Marine Corps, and so I was embedded with them. And I did in 2007 got to deploy to Iraq. Spent about a year over there. Thoroughly enjoyed it. I loved being in the military. When I um, So let's see. Something about me. I'm a father. I have a little girl. I've been married about 15 years. Um,
Nice.
Done a lot of variety of things. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a creator, a designer. I'm an idea guy. I have millions of ideas every day. And then I focus down and do things. And I've focused that energy into both designing products, physical products. I've done things from lower receiver for AR-15s to big pieces of equipment that run fully autonomous. I enjoy doing that. It's my passion in life. I love designing things. But then my employment, the way that I make money is I'm a machinist. So then the things I design, I go out and machine those things to make parts, things like that. And been doing that for a few years. And now I've decided I'm going to take all this energy, all this ideas and thinking, and start my own business, which is going to Freeburg Design and Automation. And so I'm not officially open, but I'm like in that first startup phase where I'm building everything up, doing the whole SBA route and things like that. And probably maybe 6 months out from actually firing machines up. And this will be my kind of my career for the remainder of my life. Just taking these ideas, thoughts, things that I've created out of my head, putting them onto a computer and creating three-dimensional models, and then going on the floor and designing these things. And then selling them off to other manufacturers and people like that.
That's awesome. So, I mean, Lee, I assumed since it was called Freeburg, Design and Automation, that it was your company.
Yes.
But brother, that's awesome. I love whenever anybody, goes off on their own, does their own thing, takes that risk. That's just fantastic. You said you're about 6 months out from that, so you're planning this pretty well.
Oh yeah, I meet with an SBA loan officer about once a week. I know numbers in and out, just all kinds of. At some points, I've literally sat down and seen it, like had to like think about the layout, see it in my head, what it's going to look like, so that when I turn that door, unlock that door for the first time, it's a go, and I know where everything goes.
Beautiful. I love your vision. Congrats on the husband father bit. That's absolutely fantastic.
Thank
Those
you.
are important things. 15 years, huh?
Yep.
Honestly, brother, you don't look old enough to be married for 15 years. I mean, did you
Thanks.
get married when you were 12 or what? What?
No, I'm actually 44 years old.
Are you seriously?
Yeah,
Oh
I'm
my
not even kidding.
gosh.
Yeah, I just have a really young face, I guess.
Yeah, you do,
Um,
brother. Yeah. It might be time for a big old beard or something. You know what I mean? Just
well, when I let this grow out, it definitely gets gray in here, and you can see my age
yeah.
showing a little bit.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
That's all right though. So I love it. Anyway, in addition to all that, brother, you wrote a book.
Yes.
Okay, How to Live a Better Life. Six principles based on biblical truths for living a better life. Tell us a little bit about, well, first, what's the book about?
Okay. So this is probably where I should have started my story.
Oh, you're
In
fine, man.
2020, in 2020, when we were all everybody was in the same event, right? We all suffered the pandemic together. I had some downtime, and my daughter at the time was 3 years old, and my I have a family history. My granddad and his brother, both of them passed away at 45 years old, and like congestive heart failure, passed away, and that's like super young, and that's just a few years away from me. And so excuse me, I thought about this, and I thought, well, if I have this short amount of time left on this planet, I'm not going to be here long enough to teach my daughter all the things that she's going to need to know to live life. And so I sat down and I started writing. And I started writing all the different things that I've learned over my lifetime, from the books I've read, from the preachers I've listened to, the podcasts and the people, all this information that's shoved into his head. I started writing it down and just tried to sort it out. And I came up with six different chapters. And these six principles that I came up with, I believe, are not being taught in school anymore. And they're not even, I don't even think they're being taught at home in the homes. And so I took this information and I separated it out. The very first chapter is called Know Thyself. And I very much believe that we need to know who we are as a person. We need to know what we like, what we dislike. We need to know the things that make us mad, that make us happy, that make us love this or hate that. We need to know these things about us, because if we can't, if we don't know who we are, anybody can just manipulate and twist us because we don't know anything about ourselves. And people can start saying, well, we eat this because I know you like it. And you look at it and you're like, spinach? Really? I don't know. Yeah, and like, I believe you because I don't know that I don't like spinach. No, seriously, I don't like spinach. I don't eat spinach. So knowing yourself is extremely important. And not just that, knowing like in our day and age, triggers, right? We hear this word trigger. Oh, that's a trigger for me. That's a trigger for me. Well, it's good to know those things. Know what your triggers are, these things that set you off, so that you can learn ways and techniques to counter that and to say, oh, that person just said this to me and it triggered me. And I want to punch them in the face. But is that going to get a result that's good or profitable for the work? No. So I learned this is my trigger. This sets me off. I learned to take a deep breath and say, this ain't nothing. It's no big thing. Whatever. They don't know what they're talking about, and move on with life. And so being self-aware is, I like it. The chapter covers like becoming self-aware. And in the end of the chapter, there's a series of questions that you can ask yourself and then write down in like a notebook and whatever about um, these answers, or find the answers in yourself through a notebook and personal writing. In chapter 2, I talk about love. And love is such a huge word, and it means so many different things to so many different people. And I was like, I've seen the world. I grew up in a Christian home. Then I went in the military and lived the worldly life. And so I saw what Christians would be say is love. Then I saw what the world called love. And then I experienced love for myself. And I realized that our children love unconditionally. They don't even know an opposite to love. They just do it. It's just part of who they are. And as they grow up, we become calloused, or we become manipulative, or we learn how to use the word love to get what we want. And we do it to the people who are not strong in themselves or know exactly what love is. For instance, uh, someone says, I love you. And really, what that means is, I lust after you, versus I love you. I will give my life for you. I will sacrifice all things for you. And so I explain the different types of love and feeling versus reality, the choice. And then I go over the characteristics of love, patience and kindness, these things that are a product, they're a byproduct of love, like a positive side effect. You learn to love others, and this comes with it. This is what happens. And then, of course, I talk about parents loving their children and children loving their parents, because it is written to my daughter, so I want her to obviously love me no matter what. And
Right.
it's kind of selfish, but for real, like that's. And then at the end of at the end of the chapter, I talk about God's love, and what God's, God just loving us just unconditionally, whatever, all the time. And then at the end of the chapter, I switch it from love, the verb, the action, to lust, and talking about how saving yourself from marriage, there's value in it, because I've lived that other side, and I know what the depreciation of intimacy is over time with multiple partners. But if you waited for that one partner, and you stayed with that one partner for their, now it's not going to be perfect, but there's not a comparison. You don't take, like, I struggle with this in my own personal life, comparison between my wife and that one girl I dated that one time. Now, it's not a continual thing. I've worked past that. But in my past, I struggled with that. And I realized it's not, it was the poor choices I made prior to getting married. Had I saved myself for marriage, I would have nothing to compare her to. And so all my expectations, hopes, and gratitude would be in her, because she fulfills everything that I need, because I know no other choice but
Mm.
her. Now, of course, I know the more the body count goes up, the reduction of intimacy becomes, and it becomes a cheap thrill. Somebody gets divorced and remarried. I hear lots of positive stories where the first divorce or the first marriage was really rough. They learned a bunch, got divorced, got remarried, and now their second marriage is great, because all these mistakes they made in the first, they were able to correct in the second, and so there's growth there. And there can be love, and the intimacy can be strong between the two. Um, and that kind of wraps. And then there's some questions at the end of that as well, some kind of like pointers to that direction. And then chapter three, I wrote about money. And this is one topic I think that we don't teach very well in school or at home.
Or at
We don't
all.
teach
Yeah.
it, right, exactly, or at all. Like, oh, here's a plastic card, there's money on it. Well, how much? I don't know, just swipe,
Right.
right? So I talk about this is the basic knowledge, currency, dollars, and then things like that. And then I talk about like what a bank account is, and the different types of bank accounts and the different services you can go to a bank to get, and things like that. And I talk about a little bit of investing, just some kind of like, hey, there's websites out there, Investopedia, great website, go there. There's even places you can go to pretend invest, where you have like a fake money, and then it actually results based on how the economy really works. So there's places to learn these different techniques and things like that. And then of course I talk about kind of like having a budget and tithing and paying off your bills, and i'm not a I'm not a sold out Dave Ramsey guy. I like some of his things, so I take what really applies in real life and use that. And and put it in the book and give him credit for it and whatnot. But the debt snowball, I mean, that's a fantastic idea. And I don't think he's actually the creator of that, but seriously, it works for me, it works for anybody. You put your put your money down, put everything out there and just let it fall because you're already paying that amount of money every month. You're not going to miss it. By the time 4 years rolls around, you'll be debt free and there'll be 2 grand, 5 grand extra in your bank account. It's just like it just totally makes sense. And so like I talk about not just doing a debt snowball, but also keeping your debt just really low in general. You just one, two credit cards, that's just credit balance, things like that. And I actually, and this is kind of my personal hot take. I personally believe that credit scores are your financial reputation. And so if you are a mature adult who's able to manage money, your credit score is going to be high. If you're an immature child who just doesn't care or doesn't put time and effort in, you're probably going to have a low credit score. And that's just kind of like the way it is. Um, but I've seen people go from 800 to 420 in a matter of 8 months, and then people go from 420 back up to 700 in a matter of like six. And so it's just managing your credit, paying your bills, being responsible as an adult. And so, um, super important. But I cover all that in the book too. And again, like this kind of like this is for people who probably never heard or been taught this or had parents to sit down and say, all right, come on, let's go down to the bank and we'll talk about bank. Like this stuff. I know in my own family, money was not like a topic we talked about all the time. Having a budget and doing things like that. And we were a model Christian family. I just crazy. Anyways, moving on. um, in chapter 4, I talk about so it's called of course I'm gonna draw a blank on it
It's
again.
okay, man. You know what?
It's
When you're on the
about the
spot, it's all right.
yeah, right. And I actually have them sitting all over like here. I got oh, where'd we go? Right here. Yeah.
That's all right. We need to be able to show it to everybody anyway. So I'm glad you brought the
Right.
prop.
Yeah. Right here.
Okay,
This is
there it
that
is.
author's copy.
You got it.
Um, yeah, this was it was a fun write too. Right. So chapter 4 is on religion. I want to make sure that I was like, I'm pretty sure it is, but I want to make sure. The priest, the monk, and the son of a preacher man. And this chapter, of course, is like another kind of taboo topic. Um, there's always been religion. There's always been some form of religion throughout the entire history of humanity. We've had some form. And so I kind of talk about them just briefly, kind of talk about what they are. I talk about how I personally believe religion is important because it instills the values and the morals that keep kind of society functioning and moving together. You don't have to be a Baptist for us to get along, right? But if you go to church and you're learning from the same scriptures that I am learning from, we're learning that we don't kill each other, we don't commit adultery, we don't lie. We're learning these morals together, even though our religions are different, but we're still learning the morals and values that keep us working together in a society. But it's not religion that saves us. It's our personal relationship with God. And so I talk about how our personal relationship with God is the most important part of this. Whether you believe in Allah or whoever, whatever it is, obviously I believe in the one true God, but it's our relationship with Him that is the most important for our eternal life, our existence beyond the grave. Whether that's whatever somebody believes, I believe this way. I believe there's life after the grave, and so I talk about that. And then at the end about the chapter, I give my own personal like what I've went through. I was saved as a young. I asked Christ to save me when I was like 6 years old. I grew up in a Christian family. I did all the Christian things and went to church and I was there and went to Christian school. And yet, when I turned 18, I signed the papers for the Navy. And a year later, I was in Navy boot camp, and I was living my life, and I was doing what I wanted to do, and I was living and doing whatever that made me happy. And I thought I was fine and everything was good, you know. And then I get out of the military, and I had some really close calls in the military. I got blown up. I got April 13th of 2007, the Humvee behind me blew up, and I had to pull one of the guys out of the Humvee that was on fire. The Humvee was on fire, and I pulled him out. He was on fire, and I put him out, whatever. And like I'm talking to him, and bullets are like ricocheting off the vehicle and hitting the dirt around us. And the guy literally looks at me and goes, "Doc, we're getting shot at." And I'm not like, "Oh, yeah, yeah," and like send him, you know, to cover and whatever else. And it was when I get back from Iraq, and I'm thinking about this. I'm like, there must have been. I mean, we were clearly in the line of fire, clearly in the line of fire, and not one of us got hit. You know, and matter of fact, both the guys in the Humvee, one guy's a doctor and the other guy's an Instagram influencer, whatever. You know, and like they have productive lives after. And it was a massive IED that went off. And then about 3 months later,
Wow.
uh, the truck I was in got hit with an IED, and it went off between me and so my team leader would face forward on the passenger side, and then I sat behind him, face backwards in our vehicle. And the IED went off underneath the passenger side tire, and sent us up in the air and down, and blew part of our vehicle apart. All of us are still alive. By the grace of God, all of us are still alive. And so I just know he's there. He exists. Like I should be dead. I'm still alive. He exists. Anyways, so that's my fervent
Yeah,
hot
that
take
stuff's not an
on that.
accident, brother.
Yeah.
That's not an accident when that happens.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
No.
And he was, you know, he was there. He protected us. And so I kind of give that story, or my personal testimony in there about, and then um, just kind of like got convicted and got right and started living right. And obviously having a child really kind of like wakes you up, because it's kind of like, here's some responsibility, you know, that God's given to you, but it wasn't by accident. No child is born by accident.
Right.
And so, yeah, here's this gift from God. It says here's a little girl. Raise her the best you can. And I was okay. All right, Lord, I'll do that. So, anyways,
Wow.
so
Nice.
that's chapter 4, religion, and talk about religion. Chapter 5 is called the human in me. And the human in me, and how do I explain this? We have the psychology has been important and sometimes can be manipulative, but I still believe it has found some key factors. They have studied. I mean, you conduct a study on people, and then you see a result, people do things, you write that down and say, hey, this is what people do. And you can begin to say, hey, this is what people are like. This is the way, you know, I have skin, right? Oh, hey, look, you have skin too, right? Oh, I have fingers. You have fingers too. So we all have so much in common while still being very individualistic. And so I talk about those things that we have in common. We have body, mind, soul, you know, all those things that are in common. And then of course, then we have basic needs. And I kind of take Maslow's laws, or Maslow's needs, and I
Yeah.
kind of like explain them in a little softer, more understandable way, right? You know, we have basic needs, certainty, we need to know where our food, all that's coming from.
Right.
And I go through each one of the needs all the way up to contribution, right? The very last one, when we're being um, I think when we're being productive and we're working hard, we begin to fill our cup up, and we grow. And the more that we grow, pretty soon our cup becomes full, and we start to pour out. And that's that contribution back to society. I've heard lots of different arguments against and for Maslow's needs. I look at them, and I see society, and I say I can point that out. Like, you know, like we have homeless people. Who are homeless people getting up on stages and giving big TED Talks? No, because their basic needs are barely being met.
Right.
And so they have nothing to contribute, because they can't grow, because they don't have their needs taken care of. And so that's my prime example for why I think Maslow's needs are applicable to the situation. So,
Sure.
and then I just talk about just being human in general and just the um, what it's like to be human. And there's hard times and life's not fair and it is what it is, and so work hard, do what's right, keep going. And then I close it off with chapter 6, moderation. And um, I thought that was kind of interesting. There's only one verse in the Bible that talks about moderation. And it's like some let your moderation be known among men, and they will see your good deeds and glorify God, or something along that lines. That's not exactly right, but um, I thought, man, moderation, that's a lifesaver. I think that's not just a lifesaver. I think that's like a money saver. That's a whole life mindset. Living moderately. And so read some books. A couple. One that comes right to mind is Essentialism. It's a great book about living on less, cleaning out your closet. Um, it's basically a moderate lifestyle. We know that most things, or a good majority of things in the world, are good in small doses, like mother-in-laws, good in small doses, but um,
Your wife is going to see this, you know.
yeah, more like probably,
I mean, at some point she's going to see this, and you're going to have to pay the piper.
probably,
So
and her mom will probably see it too.
it's possible.
But everything around us is good in small doses. It's when we begin to overindulge and begin to, again, like intimacy, right? More partners, the less intimacy. So when we begin to live a life of moderation, right? Water's good. Too much water is bad. Not enough water, bad, right? So there's a moderation somewhere in the middle that says this amount of water for you is the right amount day in and day out, the right amount of sleep. And so food and so on, things like that. So then I bring the reader to a point where there's a way to live, and it's a routine. It's starting with a routine, a habit, creating a schedule of living. Not Some people live minute by minute. You live in time blocks until your life becomes this habitual habit. I wake up at 6 a.m. every morning without an alarm clock. But I had to live 5 years with an alarm clock to get me to the point where I could get up at 6 a.m. almost instantaneously. So I don't have to have this rigorous routine anymore. But I had to have that rigorous routine before so that I could build that habit over time. And then once the habit became fixed, I don't, I don't need reminders. I don't need alarms. And my body just says, hey, it's this time. Do this thing. Like, oh, okay, let's go do that thing. Or time to get up, And so that I try to focus, like, I try to help the reader think about creating this schedule, a routine that they can begin to live. And then some people say it's 66 days, some people say it's 90. I try things in 3 week increments. You try for 3 weeks. If it's successful, use it again for 3 weeks, so on. If it's not, change the habit and try it for another 3 weeks. And so living 3 weeks at a time, build those habits up, and then those habits reduce your consumption over time, and because you don't have time to go consume Instagram. Or maybe you do. Maybe you say, hey, from 7:30 to 9, I consume Instagram. Instagram, done. Okay, I'm done. And you set it down, and having those time blocks set out so that nothing's wasted across your entire day or life in general.
Interesting. So that's what six is about. It puts all those tools into place.
Yeah.
Hmm. All right. All right. So you said that you were inspired to write this because of your family history and you may not be around to teach this to your kid. Um, so in essence, who did you write the book for, besides just your daughter?
16 to 20-year olds, teenagers.
Okay.
Um, and sometimes I think about this and I think, like we don't speak. I'm 44 years old. I don't speak 16-year-old, and but if I maybe write a version, like version just for teens and explain, in their terms what this stuff means. Because when I look back at life, I think to myself, at 16 years old, if I'd known what investing is, I would have had the ability to go invest in Google and so on and so forth. But I didn't. But if I teach my daughter, hey, this is how you invest, then this pop-up company, she invests $100. 10 years later, she's a multimillionaire. It's like,
Right.
no, that's not every time, but knowing how to do it, repeating the process over time, improving your process, and you'd be successful.
Nice. Okay. So, all right. The 16 to 20-year-olds, I absolutely get because I can see where they'd be able to put the advice into like practical application. It does also sound like it'd be good for, parents, to be honest, because they can read this, maybe pick up some things that they don't know, or even remind themselves about things that maybe they've forgotten, and then they'll remember to pass it on to their kids.
You're right. And the way the book's written right now is towards adults. And so parents would probably be able to latch onto it a lot easier.
Nice. I noticed you had an author's copy. Did you go through a publisher for that, or did you self-publish and somehow get an author's copy?
Well, I published through KDP Kindle
Hmm.
for Amazon. It
Yeah.
was self-published. Just went through there, and so that's like like again, like that's the author's copy, just a pre-copy when they sent. When I was like, oh, okay, I think it's ready, so they sent this to me, and then of course I can make sure all the well everything lines up, the page numbers are where they're supposed to be.
Right.
That's the one tricky part about self-publishing is uh, you're everything. You're the editor, you're the copy, you're the artist, and you got to make sure everything lines up on your own. And so, yeah, it was quite the adventure for sure.
I bet. No, there's lots of different ways to, leave things behind for your kids and stuff like that, leave legacy. What made you choose a book? I mean, are you a writer outside of this? Have you a lot of experience doing that, or what made you go that direction?
Yep. So I am a writer. I actually have had something read before Congress.
Hmm.
I wrote a letter to the editor one time in my hometown, and the senator who represented us seen it in the paper and actually read it before Congress, which was super. Then he sent me a frame, a whole thing on it, the page, like the print out from the day. It was super cool.
Oh, that's neat.
Um, his name is Mike Enzi. He passed away a few years ago, but
Hmm.
yeah, I like to write. I've written. Oh, I, this is just a short stack. Um, this is by journaling
Wow.
over
No
time.
kidding.
Yeah, I quite a bit, journal a lot. Um, I find that it helps, deal with things, plan things, build things, just keep things collective in one spot. Kind of like what you publish on Facebook or something like that.
Yeah. Okay. You froze up there for a minute, but we're back. We're good to go.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you're good. Don't worry.
It's
Don't
a
worry.
recording. All right.
Yep.
Just some things that I've written, like just commentary on my own Facebook page, things like that. And I've never kept a blog. Just wasn't my like I don't know, just wasn't my thing, I guess. I don't know. But I
Sure.
like to write, like to read quite a bit. So
Okay. No, that's one. I mean, you're a natural writer, so that makes total sense.
yeah.
So, okay, gotcha. Gotcha. All right. I mean, I can really appreciate, all of the information. It's very practical, information in the book. Um, you've got, how long ago did this come out?
Oh, I think I just like put it out last August time frame, August, October. Yeah, I think it was August of last year. I put it up on, yeah, finished the editing, did the self-publishing route, and then just put it on Amazon. I'll order a few copies here and there, and then I'll send them to some friends or something like that every once in a while. And then when I first initially came out, I told my friends about it, and I had some pretty good, people were pretty supportive, of course. I just, how do I say this? I think I haven't put enough time into promoting it to really
Mm,
get it like going, whatever else. Um, that's kind of why the podcasting. I I have a plan for podcasting and the direction I want to go with it, and bring the book, use the book to help me get where I want to go. So
okay. You have a plan for podcasting. Does that mean you're going to start a podcast, or does that mean you're going to guest on podcasts and a tour to promote the book?
I'm gonna get. I would like to guest on, like to be a touring get a guest on podcasts,
Nice.
and
Nice.
um, my
Excellent plan.
I don't know if I should say this. My goal is to be on Modern Wisdom one day.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, that's my goal. I want to see if I put in the consistency and time, which is required for success, consistency over time. If I do that over time, if Chris will invite me on his show, I think that would be the coolest thing. Just just to get on there and tell my story, like my whole life story. It'd be super
Sure.
awesome.
Well, I wish you all the luck in the world, man. You know?
Thanks. I appreciate it.
Very, very cool. All right. This is now you've been doing this for a while then. It's been out for a little bit. And so you not only put this out, you're such a writer that you've already kind of started a second project.
Yes.
Yeah, do you want to tell anybody about that? I know you don't want to give
Yeah,
away the
sure.
secret sauce to it or anything, but give them an idea of what might be coming in the future from you also, in case they really like this one.
Yeah, you bet.
Yeah.
So yes, I am working on a second book right now, called How to Be a Better Man. And this book will be specifically targeted towards men 18 to 90. No matter what age, I believe this book will be able to help men grow and mature overall. I focus on some really touchy topics. The first one being the weak man, right? I believe we live in a weak society right now. Men have become very weak, but we also have strong men out there. And so chapter 2 is about strong men. There's some good examples about Christian strong men and some secular strong men. And then I would talk about a few other things that are really important for men, and that is tribe, having a group of men that they can get together with and share, and then having an inner circle. And I focus on talking about finding your inner circle, matching up with these guys, knowing how to approach tough subjects, things like that. And then I close the book out with two chapters talking about two stories that we grew up listening to. And one is the Pinocchio story, right? We look at a young man, a boy, a wood object that turns into a boy who lives the boyish lifestyle and then has to become a man and grow up and mature. And it talks kind of like looking at the weak man and his progress to become the strong man. And then the last chapter is goes over Jack and the Beanstalk. And this is really about the rite of passage as a man. As we grow and mature, there are things that we have to set aside and face and go through a period of suffering and trials to become the man we need to be to get the maiden and the gold. And that then it's the end of the book.
Nice, nice. Be looking forward to hearing that one or reading that one too. Now, I've been part of the fatherhood, husband masculinity movement for a long time, a lot of years now. And so you have a daughter, yes?
Yes,
Okay. So what drew you over to wanting to get into, this movement with, how to be a better man?
that is a great question. When I joined the military, I was 19 years old, and women they were integrated in with us. Now in boot camp, I was an all male platoon, we yada yada, all that stuff. But once I got out into the actual Navy side of the house, then we were integrated with females, and I began to see just a lot of kind of corruption, not really corruption. A lot of things were exposed to us all the time, and I was a weak man. And I made weak decisions and poor, bad decisions. And then God slapped me around a little bit and woke me up, and I began to work on these weaknesses that I've had over time. And then I got to a point, I got to that growth. I was growing and growing, and my cup began to overflow. And I began to look out at men, and my heart began to break for them because they're being forced down and beaten down and disrespected and ground and made fun of and destroyed. And all they can do is hang their head and walk around or become that weak, toxic man that they're being called. And I said, no, like, no, you can't do that. Like, somebody has to start waking these men up. And this is probably pre 2020. And that's about 2020, I think, is when the masculinity movement really started to take off in America. And we started reclaiming our masculinity.
Oh yeah.
But I think that the work's not done. I think that some men just kind of push it off to the side and be like, yeah, whatever, my life's fine. I don't need to do anything. If she's happy, I'm happy, great, whatever. And that's the way they live their lives. And then their wife leaves them because he's a weak man and she needs a strong man to help her and defend her and to be beside her and walk with her and guide her. And so until we get men to stop being so weak, we're going to continue to have this society that we have. But if we can continue to wake men up, which since 2020 there has been in 2020, I began to see the masculinity movement really started to take off, and men started trying to encourage other men, and that was really encouraging to me. And I still think that there's work to be done. I believe that we need to begin to continue to pick men up and raise men up, and teach them and get them get them into a group, get them into a tribe, get them doing stuff together because that's how men grow together or grow in general. Like we need competition to challenge us to step up. We need jujitsu to force us to face our anger and things like that. And we need golf, we need these things as men together so that we can grow and become better men. And so that's why I'm writing the book. I want to help wake up men to build them up and make them stronger so that we can have a better, stronger society.
Yeah, that's awesome. You know, I'm in favor of that. Obviously, I've been running this program for 6 years, so
That's
it's
awesome. That is
yeah,
awesome.
it's what we talk about every single day. But I love that. You know, a huge part of that movement that you're talking about right now is that we're not competition. You know, none of us are competition for one another because there's never going to be enough men encouraging other men to be more masculine, to be better leaders, to be better husbands, to be better fathers. And we need more voices. So, I mean, I applaud you for picking up that mantle and running with it, writing a book about it. I mean, that's setting the standard, brother. So, welcome to that movement. I'm happy to have you on board, man. I really am.
Yeah,
So,
thanks. I'm excited.
very, very, very cool. Looking forward to that book. That's going to be great. Especially, you talk about both these books with so much passion, man. I mean, and just like heart. I mean, you can tell that you're really into both of these.
Yes, absolutely. And does. It comes from within me. Like I said, when I was writing the book, I was thinking about this 3-year-old little girl who may not have a dad in 2, 5, 10 years. And so if I'm not here, our daughters need us. Our daughters need us so bad. And you can look at all these different studies that say, well, there's studies that say that father-only homes are more successful than mother-only homes. And it's out there. The
Yeah,
evidence is out there. Dads are needed. And so dads, step up, be the man. My little brother has 3 little boys. He's the most blessed person I know because he has 3 opportunities to build strong men who then go out and have their families and build their strong men and so on and so forth. And we're influencing the next 3 generations.
100%. Absolutely. So your experience in the Navy is what kind of spurred this on and really lit
Yeah,
this fire.
yeah. When I would drive when yoga pants became a thing that women just wore out into town, it was it was repulsive to me. Like, yeah, I'm a weak man, and of course I'm gonna stare. because I'm a weak man. And the weak man just just irritated me so much. I just so much internal anger at myself for being that weak man. And just now, of course, it's not women's fault. I made the choice. But the as society kind of like declined, they, like,
Sure.
oh, toxic men because you're staring at us. Well, yeah, 20 years ago, most women were wearing baggy jeans and baggy clothes. And, in the last 25 years, women have stripped more clothes off than ever. And then they're mad at us for looking. And it's like, well, yeah, you're putting yourself out on display. Like, of course we're gonna look. But that's the weak man. But
Right.
the strong man looks at it and says, that's disrespectful for me to look at you. You're somebody else's daughter. Okay.
Right.
Whew. Yeah, I don't want you looking at my daughter that way, so I'm not gonna let my daughter walk around looking like that. So it's
Right.
because I love her.
Certainly lots of sides to that coin. You know what I mean? So I mean, I
Absolutely.
totally
Yep.
understand. I do. The you had made a couple of quotes. I went over them with you earlier, and there were a couple of them that I wanted to maybe see if you wanted to just speak on. One of them was, how to heal while you lead. The other one was the power of suffering, and those are two that kind of really got my attention. I don't know if you want to address either one of those, or what you meant by those, or what's behind them.
Yeah, absolutely. Heal while you lead. This is a great one. Sometimes, sometimes we're put in positions where people are relying on us to lead them in a direction. And maybe we're not qualified in that position at the time we take that position. And so it's our responsibility as men to study, to learn, to improve, to grow, to read books, to listen to podcasts, to glean information, to write and take notes so that we can become better leaders. And when I was in the military, one of the one of the one of the most common things you would hear from higher ranking people who treated lower ranking people like trash is, well, when I was a PFC, when I was that rank, my boss treated me like this.
Sure.
And so I'm going to treat you like that. That's not leadership. That's bullying, authoritarianism. I'm in charge. You do what I say, not what I do. Blah, 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 blah. So
Sure.
if you're going to be a leader, and you were raised, you're that low ranking guy who's now being treated like trash by this upper rank. You want to be above him, or he goes away because you change duty stations or whatever else, and you move up the ranks. As you move up, you have to take that toxicity that was forced down your throat, and you have to remove it and begin to rebuild yourself as a new leader, as the opposite or the counter, and taking the counter to that other leader who treated you like trash, and become a better leader. And when I was in the military, I had this very opportunity that the way the Navy works, you get evaluations every 6 months, and this evaluation affects your ability to get promoted or not. And I had a boss who was a couple ranks higher than me. Right before I left to go to a different duty station, he gave me the very bottom of the barrel evaluation. But I went above and beyond for this guy. Matter of fact, I babysat his children so that he could go out and party. And there was he not didn't take any of that consideration. He just gave me the bottom. No, you can't even get promoted, Lee. No, I don't even want you to get promoted. And I went to my next duty station and I was kind of upset about it. Like I was really like kind of hurt. Like that's a career killer. And I turned around and I began to study harder and work harder. And it wasn't always cakewalk, but I put in the time. And within 6 months, I got promoted to the next rank. And it's like I could have been. taken all that, got mad and started to hate everything, whatever else. But instead, I used that to motivate me to work and to gain and to become the leader above, or the next, moving up the ranks and whatnot. And so when
Nice.
I came out of the military and I had leadership positions, I took the time to lead these men, and not just to lead. Like I've done some personal work, like reading books, taking notes, all that kind of good stuff, like I've been saying, um, to help me recover from those times when somebody else was a cruel or disrespectful leader, somebody who was just using me to as a body or whatever else, whatever scenario we could come up with. But I I took those and I evaluated them and I said, it wasn't about me. It was about something that they were dealing with. And when I took myself out of it and said, no, Lee, you're vain for thinking it's about you. There, whatever it is, it's not about you. And I pulled myself out and I began to heal and work on that. And now, like I said, I'm about to start my own business. I'm about to be the leader, and so if I'm not healed and ready to go, it's gonna be a show. We'll see.
All right. Heal while you lead. Love
Yeah. And then the
it.
suffering is sometimes enjoyable. Let's take working out, for example. You're trying to hit a big bench press or something like that. You're going to have to gradually put more weights on every time you do it. And it's going to get heavy. But the more times you do it, the lighter it gets. Well, when the lighter it gets, the suffering begins to dissipate. So you have to add more weight. And sometimes that's the way it is in as a man in general. When things become comfortable, things become mundane, because when we hit the mundane, we begin to become lackadaisical, lackadaisical, and we begin to let our guard down, and we let the things that we used to stand against begin to creep in. And I'm going to use this example. This isn't my example. This is something that just came to my mind. Music is one of those things where we can waver in our standard on, because our taste in music changes from time to time. But let's say you're a solid gospel only person, but you grew up listening to country. So you're listening to some good old gospel music, and uh Southern gospel twang song pops in and you like it. It's not bad. It's still gospel music, but it's got a little twang to it. And then you're at the grocery store and your favorite country song comes on over the radio, and you start and you walk out and you're like, man, that's love that song. And so you put just one song. And so you turn that on and you listen to it on your drive home, but you're not really paying attention. It goes to the next country song and the next. And by the time you get home, you're about six country songs in, where your standard was, I'm a gospel music only person, and if we are not, and I'm not saying like we have to suffer all the time, but if we're not keeping our guard up with, we are gonna backtrack and have to suffer through pushing that boundary back out and saying, no, 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 no. I said gospel music only. Yes, I love that song. It's a great song. It's not devil worship, but it isn't gospel. But and that's the suffering of making that hard choice from time to time.
Hmm.
And
Nice.
then it kind of comes back to that that kind of mindset of having a routine and a schedule and doing things this methodically. It's not for everybody, but if you begin to have like backstepping issues. Oops, I ate out 3 times this week. Well, I'm not going to eat out the rest of the month, or yeah, whatever it is. Rebuilding that boundary and then reinforcing it and saying, "Yep, okay, this is the boundary. All right, no, no, I may not going to let it come through, even when the slippage comes. Just
Nice.
rebuilding it."
You put a lot of practical advice out there. I mean, it's good to hear. Good to hear. All right. Lee, listen, man, I appreciate everything you brought to the program today, and can't wait to read your book. Honestly, I think it's going to be awesome. I want to make sure, though, we unpacked a lot. You covered a lot of ground, and I just want to make sure that there isn't anything we missed. So, as we kind of, bring this to a close today, is there anything that I didn't ask you? Is there anything that we talked about? Maybe you want to drive it home a little further, or, is there just a nugget or a leave behind, that you want to, leave for everybody? The floor is yours for the last minute or two. Go for it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. My closing thoughts here. Life is hard, and it's harder when we're weak and lackadaisical. And yes, sometimes getting to where you want to be is tough, and it's going to be hard, and you're going to have to put the time and the effort in to get there. But consistency over time breeds success. And I believe, me personally, I believe God put us on this planet not to be poor and broke and weak people, but to be strong and to be of good courage. And yes, money is okay for Christians to have. It's fine. Solomon was rich. God wants you to have money. It's not a problem. Keep grinding forward. Never quit. Just keep grinding forward.
That's awesome. I love that. That's a great close, man. All right. Absolutely fantastic. Folks, husband, father, author, Navy combat veteran, product designer, and founder of Freeburg Design Automation. How to Live a Better Life, 6 principles based on biblical truths for living a better life. And soon, coming soon, the book, How to Be a Better Man. All of this, Lee Freeburg. Lee, thank you so much for being with us today, brother. You brought a ton.
You bet. Thanks, Rory.
Thanks a lot. Folks, that's been another awesome episode of the Power Man podcast. The reason that we bring on these powerful men with these powerful messages for you guys is because, we are together in supporting you in your mission to be a better protector, a better provider, a better leader tomorrow than you are today, to be a better father, a better husband, a better man tomorrow than you are today. And the reason that we want to do that for you is because you have value. You're worth it. And at some point, you just got to believe it. Until next time.